Okay, this is a video solution key for some of the problems on Chapter 3 Review 2. So we're not going to do all of them, but some of them, the ones that you have to work through, we will go over. And so the first one is number 1. And so if x, which is 1, is less than not 10, is that true or false? Since that's true, we're going to take sum and assign it the value of sum plus x. So sum is 0, x is 1, and so sum is going to be assigned 1. And then x is assigned whatever x is plus 3. So x is 1, so x is going to be assigned 4. So the value of x is going to be 4. Number 2. X is 4, and is 4 less than or equal to 5. And since that's true, then we are going to do sum is the sum plus x, and x is 0. Sum is 0, x is 4. So sum is going to be assigned 4. And then x is assigned whatever x is, which is 4 right now, plus 3. So it's going to be assigned 7. So x is now 7. Then we come out of the if structure and we do this line of code because it doesn't depend on anything. It's outside of all if structures. And so x is assigned whatever the value of sum is, which is 4, and plus x, which is now 7. And so x is going to be assigned 11. All right, let's move on to number 3. So in number 3, we have is a less than b. Well, a right now is 1, and so b is 2. Now, so before we do this, though, I just want to bring out something that might help some of you. Is we want to block off every if or if-else structure. So every if or if-else structure has to be engaged. So the compiler will always look at all the if statements. And so here we are, 1 is less than 2, which is true. And so we're going to go ahead and assign a to be the a plus 1. Well, a is 1, so a becomes 2. Okay, the next line is b less than c. Well, b is 2, and c is 3, and 2 is less than 3. So we're going to do this one and then ignore the other alternative because only one alternative is done. And so b is currently 2, and 2 plus 2 is 4, so 4 is assigned to b. And then, of course, else is skipped. So a is 2, b is 4, and c is 3. Okay, number 4 is if x is greater than 4. So x right now is 4. 4 is not greater than 4, so this is ignored, the entire if clause. And so x is assigned whatever the sum is, plus x, which is 4. And so x is assigned 4, which it already is. So we're done. All right. Okay, we're on number 7. 7, is x less than 1? Is 1 less than 1? Well, it's not. So this entire if clause is ignored. So we do with the else then. Sum times x. Well, sum is 0 and x is 1. So sum stays at 0. Then x is equal to 0. X plus 1. So 1 plus 1, x is assigned 2. So x is 2. All right. Then we move on to number 8. With number 8, since there are multiple if x or if else structures, let's block them off. So here's an if structure. Every if starts a new if or if else structure. This is an if else. And then this is an if. And this is an if. So each of these must be engaged. And so A is currently 5, which I forgot to put these down here, 5, 2, and 7. So is 5 less than 2, which it is not, so this is ignored. And then we go, is B less than C, which it is, and so we are going to do this if clause and ignore the else clause. And so B is assigned A plus 1. Well, A is 5, so B is assigned 6. Then the compiler will engage the next if structure, and A plus B, which is 5 plus 6. Remember not to look up here after you get started, because now the variables are changing. So 5 plus 6, is it less than or equal to 7? And 11 is not, so this is going to be ignored. And then we have to engage the next if structure. And so B is currently 6. And 6 times 2, okay, and then B is 6. And then A is 5. And C is 7. So we do the parentheses first. So 6 plus 5 is 11. And then we do the multiplication. 6 times 2 is 12. So 12 minus 11 is 1. Is 1 equal to 7? No, and so this is ignored. And so our final response, our final values are 5, 6, and 7. So let's do number 10. 10, we are going to bracket off the if else structures. That's an if else. This is an if. And this is an if. And so the first if structure, we have a 2. Wait, this is 2, 5, and 1. So A is 2, and B is 5, and C is 1. So is 2 less than 6, which it is. So we're going to do the if clause and ignore the else if and the else. And so C is assigned whatever B is, which is 5 minus 2. And so C is assigned 3. And then we go to the next if structure. And so B, which is currently 5, is greater than A, which is 2, and C has been changed now. It's 3. So remember to not look up here. And so is 5 greater than 5? Well, it is not, so this is ignored. And then A, is A less than or equal to B minus C? A is 2, B is 5, and C is 3. And so is 2 less than or equal to 2? Well, it is equal to, so that's true. And so so this prints here puppy, which we kind of didn't care about. And then B is assigned whatever A times C is, 2 times 3. So B is assigned 6. So A is 2, B is 6, C is 3. Okay, number 11. So this is the thing where we need to remember that if there are no braces, which there aren't, then a clause can only have one line of code. So here's an if statement, and here's this if clause right here. It only can have one line of code. Here's an X, which is not a part of any if or if else structure. Here's the next if structure, starts here. And here's the one line of the if clause. Here's the else, and the one line of the else clause. Because there are no braces, only one line is in the clause. And so this second line cannot be part of the else clause because there's no braces. So this is outside of an if or if else structure. Any line of code that is outside of an if or if else structure must be executed by the compiler. Only within the if and the if else structures are lines of code either ignored or executed. So we go with the if structure at the beginning, and X is currently and I don't know why this is here. So X is currently 6, Y is currently 10, and Z is nothing at this point. And so, is Y greater than X greater than Y? Is 6 greater than 10? Nope, that's false. So therefore, we are going to cross this one out. Now, this line of code here is not inside of a if structure, so it must be executed. So we're going to assign X plus 5 to 5. X is 6. 6 plus 5 is 11. So 11 now is going to be assigned to X. Now we start with an if else structure. Is X greater than Y? Well, is 11 greater than 10? Well, since 11, and we're not looking at this now, since 11, which is what X is now, is greater than 10, that's true. So we're going to go ahead and do the if clause and ignore the else clause. And so Z is assigned Y plus 4. Y is 10, so 10 plus 4 is 14, so 14 is assigned to Z. And now the last line of code here is not in an if or if else structure, so it must be executed. And so Y is assigned Y plus 1. Well, Y is 10, and so 10 plus 1 is 11, so Y becomes 11. So we're done. X is 11, Y is 11, Z is 14. Okay, on this one, the writing the code, the idea here is that the question is how many alternatives are there? So you have a team score already of 20. We're going to add points to the team score based on the runner's place. If the runner gets first, we're going to add 5. If the runner is second, they get 3 points. If the runner is first or third, they get 1 point. And if they get worse than third, then they get no points. So these are your possibilities. That means you have 4 alternatives. And that's why we do 4 alternatives. So if, start with an if, end with an else, and then we have 2 else ifs in the middle. And so if their place is 1 or first, then we take their team score and add 5 to it. If they get second place, we're going to take the team score and add 3 to it. If their place is third, then we're going to take the team score and add 1 to it. Now, any other number Okay, so what they're going to enter a number like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. Every other number that they enter would be no score because it's going to be larger than 4. If there's 4, it's going to be larger than third place. So everything else would be add 0 to the team score. Now, you could just say team score equals team score. In other words, it just doesn't change. You don't have to say plus 0. It's a possible thing. All right, so that's basically the idea here. Oops, let's move on to this one. In this one, we are given the user is allowed to type in one of these 3 possible things. But now we don't care if, I mean, these don't mean 3 alternatives. The point is, we're either going to tell or print out that they chose the same pizza or they didn't choose the same pizza. So that's 2 alternatives. They either chose the same one or they didn't. And so because these are strings, they're actually typing pepperoni, Hawaiian, or supreme, then we are comparing 2 strings, not numeric data. So we have to use the equals, or equals ignore case. And because it's not case sensitive, then we say ignore the case. So it doesn't matter whether they capitalize pepperoni or not. So the pizza choice by Bill, does it equal the pizza choice by Sally? And they're strings, so we use the equals ignore case, or equals. All right, and then so that's one choice, and then since it's an else, we don't have to use else if. Now we just use an else. That's the second choice, or second alternative. All right, that's all that we're going to do for this assignment, and so we're done.